So I want to say hi. I'm just going to stay on screen for a moment and welcome back. Thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us. We very much appreciate it. I'll just echo what everybody else has already said on how much we miss you and hope to see you again soon. As I want to thank Kathy and Guy for the, kind of leading up so well, so nicely to what I'm going to do now. And as you can see, a lot of our focus over the last 4 months has been about Kodak Professional Connect, but we haven't just been there. We have been working on features and bug fixes and trying to enhance and solve some of the problems that we've had before. And I'll be going through those. I'm going to work directly in dp2. I didn't do PowerPoint for you this time. So I'm going to go off camera. Just wanted to really say hi. I hope you're all well and echo what everyone else has said. And with that, I'm going to roll right into dp2. I'm going to try to stay organized. Please put your questions in the question pod. I won't look at them while I'm presenting, but I will certainly look at them when I'm done. And then I'll hand it off to the team for open mic. It should be roughly about 30 minutes, maybe, give or take, if I don't go off on a tangent. So again, welcome. And I'm looking forward to being able to show you what's happening on the dp2 side. And with that, I got to find my camera icon. And there we go. Okay. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that have changed. I'm going to be demonstrating others. As is the norm, we've done some things under the hood, features and other things where there's no UI to show you. So I'll just be mentioning those. I want to remind you all to look at to go into the knowledge base, look at the cumulative changes and the what's new when you get the new version next week. If you haven't upgraded, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the things that happened in the 23 and 24, just as reminders, because there's some really some wonderful new features that are in there that I would hope that you would I think you'll benefit from. I really do. So I want to also remind you, just one more plug for the question pod. Please go ahead and put questions in there. And of course, then we'll have the open mic session after this. So you'll, be thinking about your questions. If you don't want to put them in the question pod, write them down and raise your hand, and we'll open up the microphones and we can talk to you live, which will be great fun. So I'm going to reference a couple of different things. The way that I'm going to organize this is I'm going to look at some general changes. There were some little things that I do want to show you just so that as reminders, and then it'll be in the video if you want to go back and say, hey, what did she tell me about that one feature? And I'm going to be looking at things in order images and grid views and products and production and the Composite Job Generator. Then I'm going to wind up my session by showing you new functionality for the Command Importer. So stick around for that. If you use the Command Importer today, or you want to automate in that way, or wish you did a little bit more, I think you're going to be pleased with what's happened. What we've developed is we've added the ability to send other file formats and use the Command Importer. Right? It used to be in previous versions that if it saw a file that it didn't recognize, it just threw it into the error folder. But now, with a little bit of skill, you'll be able to send XML or JSON files as examples, and you'll be able to use the standard command import flow, or you can queue it to workers. And I'm going to end my session by showing you that, and then we'll use that kind of as a segue into open mic. And Tom, if there are questions or you want to see a little bit more in depth, Tom's going to be prepared to go through that with you. So let's get started. And let's go first over the changes. Some of them may seem a little random, but they're important parts of different workflows. And I'll try to group them together when I'm going through the UI so that they'll sort of make sense together. And one of the first things that I want to show you, and for those of us who have spent a long time in dp2, it's kind of a big change. So one of the things that's happened is it used to be that when you opened up an order image, you would, by default, look at the toolbar above it with that as the active window, and it defaulted to crop. Well, in some labs that, if somebody clicked inside here, the crop might go away, they might change it. So now what happens is that the default behavior is that it defaults to the select tool, which we hope it'll make it a little bit easier for everybody who has kind of struggled with that. And while I'm talking about the order images window, I want to just give you, we've kind of added some shortcuts. We've fixed one that was broken. So the first one that I want to talk to you about is using the letter Q while you have the order images window open. If you use that keyboard shortcut, it takes you to the 36 pix send images for processing. And you have, I believe that this was actually introduced, or this dialog box was introduced in 23, if I remember right. But when you hit send, now you have the option to say, don't show me this message again. So that, are you sure? I don't know how many times we actually let you do that, but are you sure? And you can say, yeah, don't show it to me again. Yes, I'm sure, right? And then you can kind of go along your workload. One of the things, just as a reminder about using, the active window and using a shortcut. So as an example, if I had adjust images, right? Many labs will use adjust images as their primary tool for color correction. So if I make a change to this image, I can still use that Q key to show that to toggle back and forth between what the change that I've made and then what the original image information was. So I just kind of wanted to reinforce that whole concept. So in addition to that, there's another example of kind of a small change that was made in the order images window, but I actually think it's kind of a powerhouse change, because this is one where we looked at one of the struggles that labs were having, who have lots and lots of backgrounds, were when they were coming in to do the chroma key and going to show images with backgrounds, they might have this they might have hundreds and hundreds. I don't have hundreds, but the lab might have hundreds of backgrounds. So this dialog box will allow you to see them as a list. And if you were to, use a letter or alphanumeric character to search, you'd be able to select it. It shows it to you, and then you set it. And I actually have these down here at the bottom. So I'm gonna have to, so then it would set the background for those images so that you could look at it against the background. So that's just another one of those small right-click improvements, and we're looking at how do we make it easier for you to scroll through a lot of information and be able to get to what you need to. And there's a number of places in dp2 that we've done that. I'm going to try to remember to point those out as we go, and I might not, but if not, I'll circle, ask the question, and then I'll try to go back after I'm done. So that's just a kind of another example of the kinds of things that we've done and we're thinking about doing when it comes to making it easier to find pieces of information that you need. So one other thing about shortcuts, one of the things that happened along the way is, as I'm thinking about chroma key and other things, one of the things that happened along the way is we broke the shortcut for getting to manage images from the select order window. So now with that drop down open, if I hit the G key, once again, dp2 is going to go ahead and open up that manage images window. And that was a little broken for a little while. So I just wanted to mention it and let you guys all know that we know and we fixed it. So before I leave the main screen, I do want to talk about one other feature that was introduced in 24, just as a reminder, and that's the Cloud CT service that 36 pix is offering, and that we facilitated an automated workflow inside of dp2. And I'm doing it for a couple of reasons. First, because it's one of those places where you can really differentiate, but also it's another place where we've enabled that that whole streamlined workflow. And we enabled the first one of these walk through the interface was in the export after render. So this is another one. And I just very briefly, as a reminder about these kinds of services inside of dp2, this is one where we can see the Cloud CT. These are all of the available layouts. And these are, simply a product in dp2 with a little bit of code in it, but these result in books or other, email attributes. I'm going to just bring this up and drag this over so you can kind of see it. There we go. And so this is one where I just emailed it to myself. It was a happy birthday one. Another one was just as a quick reminder. This is the book, you know, where this is the image right out of dp2, and dp2 provides that information back. And then this was one that's viewed online. So the whole series of these kind of wonderful little things, and I just wanted to kind of give you a reminder of what those were and where they are. So that's just a quick stop for just to kind of revisit that Cloud CT workflow. So next I want to mention that we're continuing to work on the behavior, on the behavior of grid views. And, you know, it's not just about, we are doing under the hood work to try to make sure that if you have hundreds and hundreds or thousands of records in a data table, that, you know, they're going to be easier to scroll through, that you do, as I said before, there are places where, and I'll show you a couple where, you know, where you can use that same technique I use with the backgrounds, where you know, put in a character and it's going to give you a subset so that you're only scrolling through the things that are relevant. And obviously, if you know the name of something, you can go right in and find it. But one of the new features in 24.1 that I think is actually going to be, it's a killer feature. I was like, yay. And I think you're going to feel the same. So one of the things that's always been a challenge is when I need to modify the way in which my tables appear. I want to bring certain fields forward. I don't want to see other ones. And you're going to see right here that my order data has very few fields in it. And I'm going to first show you kind of what's possible here, and then I will go ahead and show you how I did it. So this first one this is actually one that is based on Workstation. We have the ability now to customize. There's a new button called Fields, and I have the ability to customize by user, by workstation, and to create a system setting, depending on the table. And you can see here I have order entry, and then I have order entry 3 and 4, because order entry 1 and 2 were actually for another user as I was testing in another workstation. But I'm going to go back to show all fields. So this is what this table looks like. And we've had lots of customers who have said, oh my gosh. And, you know, before this, you had to work in Management Studio, and we had to kind of do a little bit of hoops to make sure that this is what you want. And now we don't have to do that anymore. So my order entry one, as I was thinking about it, these are only things that order entry might need in an order data table, or they might need to see. So this is really powerful, I think. And I'm going to show you kind of how I did that. So from here I go, I'm going to open the Manage Field Sequences. This, again, this was designed in that our kind of new, let's walk through the process approach to getting through, you know, to modifying or creating a setup and so on. So these are the ones that I worked on earlier, and I'm going to just create a new one. And it's just, you can modify it, but I'm going to just go ahead and create a new one. And I'll just call this, you know, I'm just going to keep on my, right, I'll call this order entry 7. And I can choose that field sequence level. So it can be system, workstation, or user. And I'll go ahead and do it by user because I want to be able to show you that this is the same for workstation, right? I'm going to go ahead and just choose myself as the user so we can see it. But this will be the same as workstation. So if the level I had chosen was workstation, then I would have gone ahead and chosen whatever workstation I wanted to use that on. And I'll create it. So now I have the ability to create, based on the order data table, you can see that's the grid view that I was in the order data table, and it gives you that feedback so that you know. And now what I need to do is choose which ones I want, and I can use the shift and control keys. So I'm going to use the shift keys, right? I want the customer ID. Then I'm going to move to control keys. Maybe I want images order, customer order ID, you know, status, you know, source, order date, ship date, and so on, right? And then I just hit the arrow, and then I'm essentially done. Don't forget to save, very important. So I'm going to go ahead and save that and confirm. And so now, I'm just going to go ahead and close this so that I have it out of the way. Because it's really that simple. And now when I come here, because I did it for this workstation and or for my user logon, there it is, and it shows in that sequence. And so now I can just switch to it. So it's really, it's, you know, not only can you do it easily, but you can do it easily for for multiple views based on whether it's they're logging on using Windows logons or it's a workstation, or you might decide that you want a specific table to look the same for everybody and get rid of all, get rid of. Now, this is just a view. It's not like the fields are going away. It's just a view of the table. And it's being crafted so that, the people that can see it can use what they need and don't have to mess around with closing tables and so on. So that's that's kind of the first, but I think it was like, oh, that's magic. So a quick reminder that while I should probably go back to all of it, but actually I'm going to do that in another table. Maybe I'll do that down here in the subject info. I didn't want to forget to say this. Just a quick reminder that now we have the ability, if I want to copy a value, right? Then I can go ahead and I can select, come on, you can do it. There we go. And I could paste that value in all those two, except for states that drop down, but I can copy that value into multiple fields and multiple columns at the same time. You can't, so I can copy it from one field and paste it into multiple fields. You can't copy from multiple fields and go to paste it into multiple fields, just so that you're kind of aware. Okay, so I did forget that, that's good. So where to next? I'm going to cover there's a couple more sort of, I'm going to move into sort of products and production features, places where we've applied that same concept around streamlining and production, right? What's the easiest way to make it so the table isn't difficult to load? What's the easiest way? How can we go in and make things so that they're a little bit easier for the operator? So first, I'm going to show you just a little bit about minimizing windows. And I know this has been, for many of us, has been kind of an interesting struggle when you have lots of things minimized, right? So if I were to minimize all these things now, one of the things you're going to see is now they kind of line up. And if I were to say maybe I have a few workers going, right? And I minimize those, and you're going to see that those command importers are a little bit different, right? So command importers are going to minimize slightly different, and they're going to minimize over here down below. I'm actually going to open up the render engine. I'm not going to start the render engine, but I just want to show you that now what happens with the render engine is it's going to still, and I'm using two monitors, and I did it on purpose because I wanted to be able to show you that it's still behaving the way I need it to in two monitors. But what I want you to notice, and I'm hoping that you can see, is that down below on the lower left, that render engine, I minimized it, but it did not hide all of the other windows that I had minimized before. So it's, no matter how many you have open, it actually just lays out pretty well so that you're not fighting and trying to move things to find things, which, when you're trying to do a lot of work, I think is really important, because like I've found myself in places where, I needed to get to something and I had to move stuff out of the way. So they've really cleaned that up, which is really nice. And of course, once you do have things minimized, just a little reminder for, those of us who forget, which I do, right, is you can go back and you can, of course, open things, simply by selecting in the window. Okay, so a couple of product-based, not new features. Well, some of them are new features, but they're a little bit of reminders of things that we've done and things that we've improved in version 24.1. One of the things that we've added is the ability to, and I think I can just do it in the product, but maybe it won't be as effective. Let's see, is when you right click, I don't know how many, I know many labs do use insert logo, but this is a feature that if you don't use it, you probably forget about it. And so over the last few versions, we've continued to add, different features and the ability to do different things. So one of the things that we added in version 24.1 is the ability to add character texture. So if I were to add a text, I'm just going to really simply add, create a text node. And I'm going to get rid of that guy there. So I'll just put test in here large. Oops, if I could spell, that would be great. So Now what I can do here is I can use actually use a character texture. You know, and wherever you have artwork on your system, right? I'm just going to go into my dp2 folder into artwork, right, and use the default one, and go to textures, right, and I'll just use something. It's just to kind of let you see how easy it is to do that. And if I preview it, you know, you can. Are you going to preview it? Oh, I added it to the wrong thing. How about that? Huh. Now let's preview it. Oh, and it's really hard to see. Maybe I'll use well, I'm not going to go back over and over it again. I think I made the point. I can make this bigger to show you probably, but this just allows you to use that texture. Oh, it's terrible to see it on the screen, but it's going to allow you to do that. It's also going to allow you to do a block texture. And just, one of those small things that kind of makes life a little bit easier. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close that. Okay, so one other thing that I do want to mention while I'm thinking about products and product IDs is that we have now also enabled, let's open him again, in a Windows, output to Windows printer dialog box, you now have the ability to use color management. We've had that for output to disk for a long time, but we have not had it. So it was enabled now for output to Windows printer. And for, just as a reminder for how this works, right, you can either use the value in the printer queue, or you can actually specify a printer so that if you wanted to, if you were color managing in dp2 to a Windows printer, you can choose the profile and then have dp2 use the information that's here in the output file of the product or the order item rather than what's in the printer queue. So it just gives you a little bit more flexibility to be able to do that. Okay, so one other thing that I want to mention while we're kind of thinking about products, and before I kind of move into another one of the bigger items, is I want to go to my packages. And one of the things, this is just an example of where we're doing this. But if I wanted to go in and edit a package, maybe I needed to change that product. If you have like hundreds and hundreds of products, and I know many of you do, and so you hit this drop down button, and we've improved the behavior of it overall. So it's more streamlined, and we've been working on different tables and different fields of doing this, throughout dp2. So here's just another example of where if I wanted to, I needed to get faster to something faster, I could go ahead and it's right there. I don't have to scroll and scroll and scroll if I know what I'm looking for. So it's another example of a place. It's similar. We did it, I think in version 23, we did the same thing in deliverables. Might have been earlier than that. Where you need to select that product, and instead of having to scroll through everything, you can use that kind of responsive behavior that's now built into a lot of these tables. Okay, so now I'm going to shift over to composites, and there's a couple of things for those of you who have never used a pattern, or for those of you who go ooh as soon as I mention a pattern or aren't familiar. I'll just ask you to bear with me for a couple of minutes. This is a feature that it's actually really in its way is a fix, right? It was something that's happened for a long time. But for those of you who are still using or continue to use grids, and there's a wide range of reasons to do that, depending on what you're doing. In the grids category, I'm just going to go to edit patterns so that I can open one, so I can show you what it doesn't really matter what pattern I use. So this is the pattern editor. If you're not familiar, if you are, welcome back. So I'm going to go to the create grid layouts. I'm not going to actually create them, but I wanted to show you something. So prior to this, when you did not have a text node selected, right, and this particular window shows where I was before, right? So it's showing me that I had deselected it. When in a kind of standard composite, you think about it, right? We have the image and the text node together, and that's how we build that relationship between the image and telling us what to do. So when we don't have that selected, when we only want the images, what was happening is that we were unable to save the style for that for a title. So if I had in my layout, say I had a title which I have here, right? The purple ones are the title. And I wanted to be able to save the style so that my entire collection had that style saved. We were unable to do it because this was deselected. And we fixed that now, so that if you are using patterns and you're not using text nodes, you will be able to apply a style, which I think will be helpful for lots of folks who are working in the patterns world. So that's my first stop for composites. The next changes that I want to talk about are really about the Composite Job Generator and some enhancements that we've made to the Composite Job Generator. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up my subject info data table. Now this was introduced, I think this was 24, it might have been 23.1. Another one of my favorite things is a new button to open the Composite Job Generator. So I have a number of orders related to this because this has a shoot description. This is the sample order, but I'm just going to select the sample order and walk through some of the changes that we've made over the last, I would say this probably spans a year. I think we've been working on incremental improvements to make this a better experience for everyone. So as I'm looking at this, one of the things that I'll just kind of point out. So there's a couple of things, and without kind of going through the process, and I'm not going to take the time to do that now. If you want to go through this again, either ask questions in the pod or reach out, and we can go through these. We can go through these quickly. Half hour on the phone, and I can kind of show you how these all work. But some of the things that we've done is we've enabled some different functionality for when you order packages, and we've made it possible now to to kind of define things a little bit differently. And we've got the ability to use, actually I'm going to show you here, I have it here. So here as an example, when we have lots of labs, we'll have a letter or a series of letter quantity codes. And so we've enabled now with quantity, number of ordered packages, we've enabled it so that you can, it will understand when the field that you're looking for in the subject info data table has that combination. So there's things like that I think will really help to streamline some workflows. Another thing that we've done is we've allowed you to now copy from. So if you wanted to make a new job setup, you could, and you brought in, it was a new order or it was a new product, you could go ahead and select and copy it from an existing setup, so that way you don't have to when almost all the data is the same and you're making minor changes, you don't have to go through and reinvent the wheel. So those are things that we think will really help to streamline some of this work. So now the next enhancements to this, and there are just a couple more before I kind of move on to the some of the other things. No details. Oof, it got big. So this is something that for those of us who, have lots and lots of macros, or we have certain strings of macros, we're combining 3 or 4 macros at a time in order to have certain things happen. So now we've got the ability, not only do we have much more space for text, we have more space for images, we have substantially more space for style. And you can see as well across the span of the window is much larger. So everything got bigger, which is great. And so you'll be able to see a lot more information. And some of these are based on the size of the window. Others are based on, we looked at how big is the field, right? How big is the product ID field? How big is the, that kind of thing. So it's based on, it's not going to ever be any bigger than this because that's as big as the fields are. But in some cases like style, you can name those. So we kind of looked at that so that way you'll be able to see all those things. So this is the one place where we kind of made everything bigger. But when you look at view as an example, this is a place where it is bigger, but the size is also based on, I should actually load this job setup, but the size is based on, again, the field size. So now when your product ID and your group, and these are, it will actually show you, so you'll be able to read the whole thing. You won't have to, try to figure out what style is it or what group is it. You'll a lot less hunting and pecking to try to get that information. So these are going to be really, I think, for those of us who use the Composite Job Generator all the time, I think these are going to be really nice for you to be able to look at that. So that's kind of what's happening in the Composite Job Generator, and I'm anxious to get some feedback on that from everyone, because I was really excited about this one. Because when you're in the Composite Job Generator, you want it to do what you want it to do. So now the last change that I want to talk about, and probably the biggest change outside of KPX, is what we've done for the functionality of the command importer. The command importer, which I think I have open over here. Yes, I do. For those of you who don't use the command importer today, at a high level, it watches a directory for text files that include a series of KPL commands. I'm not going to kind of bounce into that. I will show you the file that I am going to use, just so that you can see it. But so what we've done and what we've changed is, in past versions, any other kind of file but a text file that dp2 is expecting would have errored out. And in an unintended version, right, workflow, dp2 would have tossed it in an errors folder, and then you would have had to go back, and there was really you were kind of stuck. If you wanted to rerun it, you had to rerun the whole thing. And anyone who's using the command importer knows exactly what I'm talking about. So what's changed is that we've added the ability to for the command importer to recognize and act on different file formats when they're adding information and data to dp2. So I'm going to show you a sample file just of the XML file, and I'm going to kind of show you, I'll show you kind of how it was at a high level, how it was structured and how it was done. But the behavior of the command importer is going to essentially be exactly the same as it's always been. So I've got this little test XML, and just let's see if I deleted it, because I've done it 100 times, right? So it's not in there. Good. Wanted to make sure. And Tom's demo, he had this great, wonderful way of showing it, but there were too many other windows I had to have open, so I couldn't do it that way, but maybe he'll show you that later. So this XML file, and I'm going to kind of say it, oops, the way that Tom said it. Oh, hold on a second. I'm not going to open it that way. I'm going to do that again. There we go. I'm going to right click and edit it in Notepad, which also opened on my other monitor. There we go. Okay. So I think this is how Tom said it to me, because this is sort of programmer land. So I'm only going to spend just a moment in here. But if you know how to write XML, and you might know, how to format it this way, and of course we'll be happy to show you how to do that, and to kind of walk you through what's going on, and Tom can answer questions right after I'm done, and I'll be done very shortly. But you can see, right, order, customer, here's my order ID, it feels, for those of you who use the command importer today, it's going to feel kind of pretty natural. So I just kind of wanted to give you a sense, because this is what they used to look like, right? Where we've got subroutines and add order and so on. And what Tom has done at a very high layman's version of this is he's now kind of allowing, I should just skip that part, right? But I'll let Tom worry about that later. So anyway, I'm just going to show you the result rather than worry about trying to explain it. So I'm going to drag it onto the command importer, but in normal working environments, right, these would be dropped into the directory, and the command importer, which I will turn on, would just look into that folder and then go ahead and work on anything. So I'm going to drag this XML over here, and you can see it's going to execute just like you would normally see. There's from an operation standpoint, it's not going to be any different. And so then now the magic happens, right? And I'll go now. If I go in, looks like it's done, right? And I do XML, or actually I'll do test, right? I can't remember. Test, right? And so now I have my order, and I'll hit my enter key, right? I gotta go back down here. There's my order images, right? And so you can see, right, there's my image. I've got a couple of products, one of them in that sample, and Tommy mentioned it during the open mic. I had the instruction in there to make it a grayscale. I added the name there and so on. So operationally, it's going to be pretty much exactly the same. So very quickly, and also at a very high level, what Tom has done here, in which he will explain in more detail if you ask, and I'm hoping that you will all ask, or that he will do it, is within that those folders now, here's the error, and that's auto-generated, so we would have that regardless. But there's a folder called handlers, and inside that I have an XML handler, and there's an action script. You can queue it to the worker. This says not queue to worker because I don't want it to queue to the worker, because I wanted to show you that the kind of command import way. And it uses an action script so that, kind of looks, is there a handler? Is there one for this format? Do I have an action? And then it goes ahead and kind of happily parses whatever that is and allows you to add data and image paths and enter text data, subject info data. Oh, actually, I can probably show you that, right? Because I also added a subject info record, right, for this particular child. And for me, that's the heavy hitter for dp2 version 24.1. And with that, I'm going to pause. I did not look at the question pod at all. So I guess I can drag that over here and take a look. And I'm going to, if I can get to it, there we go. Let's pull it over into this screen so I can see it. Oh, I hear their voices.
So Pat, can you hear me?
Tom, I can. Can everybody else hear? Oh, you know what? I can't get to the question pod. What happened to it?
So real quickly, let's go back to your little logo demonstration, because I think you just got
the logo.
Yep, you got slightly sidelined there.
Oh, so insert logo, that one?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Because you don't need to create the text. You don't need to create the text node, right? You're putting the text down in the bottom of that. Like, just double click that.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Oh, there's a real brain spaz. Look at all, I have to own that in front of all these people, Tom.
Then you can show them the texture.
I've owned so much worse. No. I know exactly what you're saying. And you're right. I did go like totally, open it. I did go totally astray. Oh, hold on. Now my mouse doesn't like me either. Okay, there you go. So what Tom is saying, thank you very much. Can we cut this out of the recording? What Tom is saying is that really what I needed to do is put it here, which I don't know why in my brain I've lost that. Too many things on my list, I suppose. So thanks, Tom. So this is, right, logo. And I'm going to add a text color just so that I think it'll make it a little bit easier to see. And then I'm going to add that character texture. I think that'll do it. Thanks, Tom. So how did I do? Never mind, I'm not going to ask. Let's see, where was I? Artwork. So this would have been the proper process. Thank you very much. I'll make it bright yellow. And let's preview that. Oop, where'd it go? There it is. Uh-oh. Again, let's do this.
So unfortunately you picked one that
I know.
that you set the After Effects to grayscale. So after all that beautiful logo was pasted in there with the texture, it got changed to grayscale. So
you would think I'd never done this before.
So that was my fault. I told you to click on that one. I should have picked the other one, but just
okay.
I just wanted to show you that. And we don't have to go back and do it. They can play with it.
Yeah, no, I know. Now I'm gonna have to do it because it's gonna make me crazy if I don't. I'm not gonna actually worry about that. Let's just give it some character texture. I'll make it big. I'll center it. All right, let's see. And we're gonna choose like the blazing sun. And there, oh, even that's not big enough. Look at that.
It's underneath. It's
Very
underneath
nice.
the
Yeah,
other
there
node
it
there.
is.
So.
There it is. There it is. Yeah. Okay. We might as well can we just use this as the beginning of our open mic?